Bachelor of Science degrees from NDSU. So I have journalism, public relations, and natural resource management with an emphasis in environmental communication. Currently not technically using any of those degrees, but I am a stay-at-home mom, and then I pet sit and sell more wax and do rescues. So I guess the public relations one for sure is probably helping me out a bit, but right now they're just hanging on my wall. And I've kept animals all my life, but I've kept reptiles for 8.5 years. Some of these critters have been to multiple presentations. Some of them are brand new to presentations, so I'll let you hold a couple of them, but some of them might not be ready to be handled and passed around a bunch of critters. But I do have a lot of animals that you can hold. So that's kind of my background. I have 2 kiddos, one that I'm adopting and one that I had. So I have a 14-month-old daughter, and then my nephew is 4.5 that we are in the last stages of adopting. They're with grandma today. So yeah, it's kind of my background. Does anybody have questions on that before I start on snakes? Yes?
When you do pet sitting, do you visit people's houses or do they bring them to you?
I do a little bit of both. So small caged animals such as like hamsters, rabbits, smaller snakes and lizards, I do boarding at my house. Everything else I do in-home, so I would go to their house up to 5 times a day depending on what animal it is and what they need. So if like you have a dog, I usually go 4 or 5 times a day, and then I charge by the visit. So yeah, and I do all the Fargo-Moorhead Horace areas. So, yeah. Any other questions? General questions? All right, so first let's start with snakes. Just because once I handle some of the small mammals, I don't want to handle the snakes till I wash and change my shirt. These guys live in the same room as the small mammals, so they'd probably be okay, but I just don't like overstressing them. So that's why I'm going to start with them. So right now I have 7 snakes at my house. I did not own snakes till 3 years ago, and actually this summer, fall, spring, spring, summer, fall. Anyways, this whole year has been the most that I've ever had for snakes come through the rescue. And so a lot of them ended up, not a lot of them, several of them ended up staying, just so I could have them for presentations. So this year I had I've had about 16 or 17 snakes come through, give or take, probably a couple other ball pythons I'm not remembering right now. And so I have a foster home right now that has 6 of them, and then I've got 7 at my house. So a lot of the ones that I've gotten have been from abandonment situations. We had 12 snakes that were abandoned in an apartment building in Crookston, which is the farthest that I've been contacted about a reptile. I've picked up other mammals in the cities before. So this apartment complex actually called me up, and they went to the apartment, and the people had left 12 snakes in a rack system. They brought the rack system all the way to Fargo. When we opened up the rack system, 2 of them were already deceased, unfortunately. All the rest were in really dirty, small cages with no water, hadn't been fed or handled in an estimated about 2.5 months from when the renters last paid, so they guesstimated on when they abandoned the snakes. So these 2 snakes here are from that situation. So out of those 12, 2 were hognoses and 10 were ball pythons, and 2 of the ball pythons have passed away. All of them are higher end morphs, so probably cost whoever had bought them quite a bit of money. But snakes do cost a lot of money to feed, which is why they end up being abandoned or needing rescue. So we'll probably start with Snarf here. So Snarf is a hognose, and his coloration is called an anaconda hognose. Yeah, he's hissing at me. He is usually pretty good, but I always usually try to take him out with the snake hook first. So again, I have no idea how old any of these guys are, because they are rescues. But this is a typical size for a male hognose, and I can tell that he's a male from his tail. So if you see, he's got a longer, short tail here. If he was a female, it'd be fatter from where the yellow is. And you guys are welcome to come up when we're done with each one to look at them. So this is Snarf. Yeah, and he is doing pretty good. Does anybody have any questions on hognoses? Yeah.
Since he's on a hawk nose, does he ever play dead?
He has not played dead with me. He's done like the false cobra thing where he like flattens out his face. That's one of their defense mechanisms. Don't go in my shirt, buddy. But he has not played dead for me yet. And I have another hognose at home, but he's on a hunger strike right now, so he's not eaten for a month for me, which is not normal for him, but with the temperature change, it does happen. So I didn't bring him, and he's the one I usually bring for presentations. But yeah, so they can play dead. That's one of their defense mechanisms. And they actually, I answered this question before we started videoing, but because we are videoing, I'll go back. These guys are, they're usually hissing, semi-venomous, but they have rear fangs. So if you did get nicked by their fangs, you would get venom in your system. Most people don't react too terribly to it. But he hasn't, yeah, it'd be really hard. It'd be like he'd be having to try to eat you, which doesn't really happen with these little guys. But that's something a lot of people don't know when they take in hognoses as pets or rescues. And they can live fairly good, like usually 20, 25 years for these little guys. So again, I have no idea how old he is. Yeah. Questions? Any other questions?
Will he get bigger than that?
He can probably get a little bit bigger, but because he is a male, he'll stay smaller. Female hognoses get quite a bit bigger though. So, yeah. Put him back in here before he gets too stressed. He's not gonna want to go back in there. And then we have number 7 here. And so when we got in all those rescues, we just numbered them to begin with. Here, let me just pick you up. All right. And again, I don't know if this is a male or a female. We're guessing they're all females just because of their body density, because females will be a little bit thicker than males. Again, not sure how old. This will... 7 will probably get bigger, just because ball pythons get a little bit bigger than this, even if they're males. Females will get quite a bit bigger. And at first they were really shy because they hadn't been handled and fed for that long. They still kind of have some shed issues going on. I worked a lot with trust with this one, because when we opened them all up, they were probably the crankiest ball pythons we've ever encountered. Ball pythons in general should be very shy, easy to handle, will kind of ball up in your hand to like not be aggressive. But these ones were all like ready to bite and didn't know what was going on. They also were kept in a rack system, so there was like no light. So if they hadn't been, moved in and out to feed or handle, they'd been in seclusion with no heat for that long. So they actually were pretty lucky to have been survived. They put on a little bit of weight for me. Again, they are a longer-lived snake, and I had answered this question before too. So all my snakes eat frozen thawed. I don't feed live. If we do get any rescues in that eat live, we convert them to live. I have a friend that helps a lot with fostering, just because now I have limited space with the 2 kiddos living in my house. But yeah, everyone does eat frozen thawed right now. Any questions about ball pythons? Does anybody have a ball python? It's a pretty common pet snake.
I had a friend that was leaving for the summer and I watched hers.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah, they're very fun snakes. Rescue ones are going to be a little bit more difficult as far as that, just because you don't know their background, and any abused animal is going to be kind of iffy. But yeah, I would say they're very fun, easy snakes to own. Any other questions about these guys?
Oh, why was his name 7?
Because he was number 7 in the rescue rack. So we just went down the rack and numbered him, and I've kept his name number 7 just because I couldn't think of a better name, and I was like, well, that's a good start for like a rescue story for him or her. Again, I have no idea. You can probe them and kind of determine, but because they've already been so stressed, I have not done that. And I'm not breeding, so it doesn't really matter if it's a boy or a girl. It's just might have a wrong type of name. But common thing for ailments, hognoses would be like respiratory infections more so than anything else. With ball pythons, it would be mites if they're not kept in a clean environment. Also, mouth rot's really common in these, as well as a fungal infection. Ball pythons seem to get sick pretty easily if not cared properly for, and would probably be the most common that you would see in a veterinary practice, just because they are sold very readily in most pet stores. As far as those snakes are illegal, so you can't find them in PetSmart anymore, but most other PetSmarts and Petcos will carry ball pythons for sure. So, yeah.
Do you tend to see mouth rot or scale rot more?
Mouth rot more, it seems. I have not came across anything with scale rot, and thankfully have not came across anything with mites yet in the rescue, which is fingers crossed, because that's something very common. But thankfully I haven't had that issue with anybody. We've mostly just had respiratory infections in the ball pythons that have came in this year, a little bit of shed issues, and the newest snake I have in my house has a lump on her tail that I need to get checked, and that is the 5.5-foot red-tailed boa that I have in my house. She didn't get to come with today, but she is very impressive, and I have pictures that I can show you guys afterwards of her. My husband named her Kitty, so just because he's like, I don't want my mom to know we have a giant snake in the house, so he's like, her name is Kitty. So, yeah, it's kind of sneaky for that, but yeah. Any other questions about 7 or the rescue?
Can you explain to them what a rack system is? for
Oh,
housing
yes,
snakes?
sorry.
Are you guys familiar with that at all?
So,
Some are, some are.
yeah, so a rack system, it can be various different sizes, but it's basically just a shelving unit with plastic or wood sliding drawers or totes that the snakes live in. So you just slide them in, and most of them have like a unit that heats the whole rack system. But I'm not a fan of those. Breeders will readily use them just because they have a lot more snakes, and space-wise it's easier for them to house them in a rack system than in tanks. I use front opening tanks for all my rescues and my own if I have the space. Otherwise they usually go in totes. But rack systems, it's hard because every time you open it, they don't know if they're getting fed or getting taken out or what. So, and it's a lot more of moving the entire cage and the snake. So for certain species, it can really stress them out. Some species do fine, and again, if they're not neglected, rack systems usually work very well. But I just don't use those. Yeah.
Is that something a corn snake could easily escape from?
Yes, a corn snake would not be a good option for a rack system. I will say that, because they are very good at escaping. That's probably the escape artist of the snake world, and this is Red as a corn snake, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him. But ball pythons and larger snakes, hognoses, it depends on how secure the rack system would be. These guys were fine in the rack system that they were in, just because it was a smaller tote with like very little space when you slip them in. But yeah, corn snake would definitely escape the rack system. Yeah. Any other questions? He's doing really good today. So if he's still doing good later, we'll probably be able to handle him a bit. You want out? Okay. And then I have Red, the corn snake. So Red is probably one of my most adventurous rescues that I've had. So he came in, again, I'm not really sure if it's a male or female, I'm guessing male. But he came in middle of September. So this little old lady called my phone number, because my cell phone number is linked to my rescue page. And she's like, I have something I don't think is native in my backyard. It doesn't look like a garter snake. And I was like, okay. I was like, send me a picture and make sure it's not just a colorful garter snake chilling on your fence. So she sends me a picture, and I was like, oh, that's a big corn snake. I'll be right over. Because she had called the pound and the pet stores and the Humane Society, and they were all like, we can't help you, call animal control or look up a rescue. So I went over there with a snake cook, because, you know, snakes outside, you're not really sure how they're going to react. And this guy had apparently been just chilling on the bottom board of her fence all day. Picked him up. He's like the most docile snake I've ever had. He is even more chill than my sand boa I've had 3.5 years. Ate frozen thawed the first night. Vet checked out fine, no parasites, no other health issues. So he's either a escape artist that never got claimed, because I did notify all the pounds and humane societies and pet stores that I had found the snake. But nobody called in looking for a snake anywhere. Nobody posted online looking for a snake. So he just stayed because it was like, this is a cool story and he's super chill. So now I have a corn snake. But yeah, he is either an escape artist or somebody just let him go. And actually, it was right before that like September cool storm that we had. So he's really lucky that somebody saw him and he got caught because he would not have made it, especially with the cool temperatures. And because he took frozen live so easily, he probably wasn't like able to hunt on his own either, which is also why he probably didn't have any parasites. But yeah, so he is super cool. Females usually get bigger than this. I have a friend that has a 6.5 foot female corn snake. Corn snakes are escape artists, but usually very chill, personable snakes. Also a good beginner snake as long as you have a big enough cage for them and are able to house a big enough cage. So he lives in a 40-gallon tank. So to give like perspective, so Snarf the hognose here lives in an 8x8x12 tank, and that's all he'll need unless he fills up a little bit more. He mostly just hides his entire time. Seven lives in a 20-gallon like square front opening